Picture this. You're staying at a hotel in downtown LA. A few days go by and you notice the water pressure in your shower is getting weak. And the water itself, it has a strange, sweetish taste. You complain at the front desk, but nothing changes. This goes on for almost 3 weeks. And then you turn on the news and discover that this whole time you've been drinking, brushing your teeth, and bathing in water from a tank that held the decomposing remains of a human body. ShadowNotes. Tonight on ShadowNotes, we're diving into one of the most chilling and debated mysteries of our time, the story of Elisa Lam and the cursed Cecil Hotel. It all started in January 2013. 21-year-old Canadian college student Elisa Lam decided to take a solo trip down the West Coast. It was a dream vacation, one she was documenting on her personal blog. Her final destination was Santa Cruz, but first, she made a stop in Los Angeles, checking in to the Cecil Hotel on January 26th. And this is where the story takes its first dark turn. The Cecil Hotel, built in the 1920s, isn't just an old building. It has a reputation that will make your blood run cold. Located in the infamous Skid Row area, it's been a magnet for the darkest of events for decades. Numerous instances of individuals tragically taking their own lives, unsolved crimes. It was a temporary home for serial offenders. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, lived there at the height of his horrific spree in the 80s. He'd return after his deeds, dispose of his blood-soaked belongings, and casually walk up to his $14 a night room. Later, in the 90s, the Austrian predator Jack Unterweger also lived there, supposedly choosing the location to emulate Ramirez. The locals call the Cecil a magnet for evil. And this is exactly where the young and hopeful Elisa Lam arrived. At first, everything seemed normal. She called her parents back in Canada every single day. But on January 31st, the call never came. Elisa had vanished. Her belongings, wallet, ID, everything was left in her room. The LAPD began a search, but there was no trace of her. The first thing that caught my eye in the story was that Elisa was originally placed in a shared room, but was moved to a private one shortly after. The reason? Her roommates had complained about her strange behavior. What that behavior was, nobody ever specified. Days turned into weeks. The case was at a standstill. And so, nearly 2 weeks after she disappeared, the police released the only lead they had. And this lead turned a missing person case into a global phenomenon. It was a surveillance video from one of the hotel's elevators recorded on the day Elisa went missing. What that camera captured cannot be rationally explained. 4 minutes of pure dread. The footage shows Elisa entering the elevator and pressing buttons for multiple floors. But the doors, they don't close. She cautiously peeks out into the hallway as if looking for someone. Then she jumps back inside, hiding in the corner as if she's running from a pursuer. But there's no one in the hall. Then she steps out again, looks from side to side, and her hands begin to make strange, disjointed, unnatural gestures. It's like she's talking to someone unseen. Finally, she walks off camera to the left, and only then do the elevator doors finally close, open, and close again before the car moves. This video broke the internet. Millions of views, thousands of theories. But it didn't answer the one question that mattered. Where was Elisa? The answer came on February 19th, and it was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. For over a week, hotel guests had been complaining about water issues. Low pressure, a dark color, and a foul taste. A maintenance worker went to the roof to check the 4 massive water tanks. The rooftop was locked, accessible only to staff. He got a ladder, climbed up to one of the tanks, opened the heavy lid, and shined his light inside. There, floating face up, in the dark water, were the remains of Elisa Lam. She was nude, with her clothes floating nearby. I got chills when I started digging into the details. How did she get in there? The official coroner's report sounds simple and tragic. Elisa Lam, diagnosed with bipolar disorder and off her medication, suffered an acute psychotic episode. In a paranoid state, fleeing an imagined threat, she hid in a water tank, where her life ended by accidental drowning. On paper, it's case closed. But when I started digging, I realized almost no one believes this version, and for good reason. On the forums where this case has been dissected for years, the official story is completely shredded. As one Reddit user wrote, if you indicate a death as undetermined, the case will never be closed. If, on the other hand, you give a clear verdict, like accidental death, the case is closed. And there are more questions about this accident than answers. Let's break this version down, based on what people have found. First, access and height. The rooftop door was locked and alarmed. How did she get past it? But even so, the water tanks are massive, 10-foot-tall cylinders. How did a petite woman about 5'5" manage to climb that high in a state of panic with no ladder? And second, the most impossible part, the lid. The report states it was closed. After getting inside, how did she manage to pull that heavy metal lid down over herself from within? Physically, it seems impossible. And even her behavior in the elevator. The official version explains it as psychosis. And to be fair, there is weight to this argument. As one commenter with the same diagnosis writes, "You're more prone to delusional, dangerous, risky behavior. I have done shit on Elisa Lam's level that could have easily killed me." It's a powerful point. But others are convinced they saw something else. She looked like she was talking to a demon, another user writes. Some people believe she was playing the elevator game. The official version doesn't explain why the video footage appears to be cut by nearly a full minute. A minute in which anything could have happened. But if we set aside logic and dive into the absolute surrealism surrounding this case, that's where you get real chills. This isn't just a story with plot holes. It's a web of bizarre, statistically impossible coincidences. And now I want you to truly appreciate each one. Let's start with the fact that seems the most unrelated to the case. Right after Elisa's disappearance, there was an outbreak of a very rare and dangerous strain of tuberculosis on Skid Row, right where the hotel is located. The authorities launched an emergency testing program for the homeless population. What does this have to do with Elisa? Well, here's the thing. The name of the test the medics were using, I want you to pay attention, was Lam Elisa. I am not kidding. Lam Elisa. Is this just statistical noise? Or is it a creepy, blood-curdling joke from the universe? Not enough for you? All right. There's a 2002 Japanese horror film, which later got an American remake, called Dark Water. A fictional story, of course, but the devil, as always, is in the details. The plot of the film. A mother and daughter move into an old, gloomy apartment building. They start noticing dirty, dark water leaking from their ceiling. In the finale, it's discovered that the body of a little girl who vanished a year prior is inside the water tank on the building's roof. And now for the terrifying part. Point 1. The name of the deceased girl in the American version is Cecilia, or Cece for short, which sounds almost identical to Cecil. Point 2. In one scene, the main character wears a red jacket, strikingly similar to the one Elisa was wearing. Was this a prediction? Or could someone have recreated the plot of this movie in real life? And for dessert, the most inexplicable piece of all, the Last Bookstore. This is a real place in LA that Elisa visited and wrote about enthusiastically in her blog. So what? It's just a bookstore. But sometime after her death, internet sleuth discovered something I can only describe as a digital ghost. If you take the zip code and domain number from the store's website and enter them as coordinates into Google Maps, the system won't show you Los Angeles. It will take you thousands of miles north to Vancouver, Canada, and it will drop a pin directly on Forest Lawn Cemetery, the very place where Elisa Lam is buried. This isn't just a glitch. It's a perfect, mathematically precise hit on her final resting place. A tragic accident? Maybe. But when coincidences line up in such a sinister chain, when reality mimics fiction, and digital trails lead to a gravesite, you start to doubt whether there's any room for chance in this story at all. Don't you think? What is the status of the case today? And this is the most frustrating part for any investigator. Officially, the Elisa Lam case is closed. The verdict is accidental, and the LAPD is not actively investigating. No one was ever arrested or even named as a person of interest. Her parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel, arguing that the management failed to secure the premises and restrict access to dangerous areas like the roof and water tanks. But the lawsuit was dismissed. The judge ruled that the hotel could not have foreseen that a guest would try to get into a water tank in such a way. For Elisa's family, there was no justice. And what about the hotel itself? The Cecil Hotel, or as they tried to rebrand it, the Stay on Main, has a history too dark to be erased by a new name. It was closed for several years for major renovations. Just recently, after the pandemic, it reopened its doors. The new owners are trying to position it as affordable housing, but the past hasn't gone anywhere. YouTube is full of videos from urban explorers and paranormal investigators who snuck in while it was closed. And they all say the same thing. They describe a heavy, oppressive atmosphere within its walls. It's said that even now, guests sometimes complain of strange noises in their rooms and an unexplainable feeling of dread, as if the building itself remembers everything that happened there. The official version points to a tragic accident fueled by mental illness. But internet investigators point to dozens of inconsistencies. So what did we see in that video? The final moments of a lone girl's psychotic break in a terrifying place? Or was it her last desperate attempt to hide from someone or something that dwells within the cursed walls of the Cecil Hotel? This story haunts me. On one hand, you have a logical medical explanation that fails to answer key physical questions. On the other, you have a string of eerie coincidences and the oppressive aura of a place where horrible things have happened for decades. I feel like the truth is somewhere in the middle, floating in the dark water on the roof of that hotel. What do you think happened? Was this a tragic series of circumstances, or was there a third, unseen party involved in Elisa Lam's case? Let me know your theories in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to ShadowNotes so we can investigate more of the world's most unexplained stories together.